we have university in the yeshiva, it's so different. But everything, all of the learning in our yeshiva comes from the same source that the learning came from in the yeshiva in Yerushalayim. In 1801, Rav Chaim Volozhin founded the Volozhin Yeshiva. And the yeshiva was only so big. And the Talmidim came from all over Lithuania. So they had to open up other yeshivas in different locations. So they had to open up yeshivas Slobodkin, they had to open up Telz and Mir and Panovich and Radin and Navardik and all of the other yeshivas, all these Lithuanian yeshivas. The Lithuanians developed a certain style of an analytic approach to Gemara. Each yeshiva had a different twist, each yeshiva had a different style. Each one was jealous for its style. But basically, they all had one tzad hashava. It was all a certain style of analysis of Gemara. And then Rav Chaim Soloveitchik was Rosh Yeshiva in Volozhin, and he started giving a new style of shiurim, and his influence was felt in most of the Lithuanian yeshivas, not in all of them. When I was a Talmud here in the yeshiva, everything was, the whole yeshiva over here was the Lithuanian style of learning. Dr. Revel was before my time, so he died before I was born. Dr. Revel was a Telzer. Dr. Belkin, who was the president after him, had learned in Radin. And Reb Mendel Zaks was the son-in-law of the Chafetz Chaim. So after the war, he came to America. So he was the one who gave smicha to Dr. Belkin. He gave shiurim in Radin during the lifetime of the Chafetz Chaim. So he was here in the yeshiva. He was the boichen, and he would give shiurim in the yeshiva. All of the rabbeim, all the European rabbeim were all either Telza or Mira or Slobodka and so on. They all had learned in these Lithuanian yeshivas. So Rav Nosson Tzvi Finkel was really echad men achabura. We all basically belonged to the same chabura. Originally, there were two yeshivas founded here in New York. The first was founded in 1886, that was Eitz Chaim. The second one was Yeshivas of Yitzchak Hanan in 1897, after Yitzchak Hanan passed away. I don't know if it's true, but that's what they told us when we were students, that Eitz Chaim was the name of the Volozhin Yeshiva. That our yeshiva is named Eitz Chaim. It's still on the emblem of the Yeshiva University. It says Eitz Chaim on the bottom. This yeshiva is supposed to be carrying over that style of learning. It started with Rav Chaim Volozhin and traveled to all of the different Lithuanian yeshivas. In a certain sense, I personally feel that it's not only Echad Men HaChabura. In a certain sense, I feel as if it's Echad Men HaAchim. I don't think I ever spoke to Rav Nosson Tzvi in learning. Every time I visited him, we would talk about family things. In a certain sense, we were cousins. My father-in-law, Zochain Lavracha, had learned in the Mir Yeshiva when he was a teenager with Rabbeinu Finkel. Rabbeinu Finkel was the son of Ablezer Yudel Finkel, who was the son of Rav Nosson Tzvi Finkel, the Alter from Slobodkin. So Rabbeinu Finkel was a teenager, the same age as my father-in-law, so they were very friendly. They were away from home. They couldn't call up on the telephone. They didn't have any fax machines. They didn't travel home so often, so they became very friendly. From learning the yeshiva away from home, they become very friendly with each other, especially if they don't go home so often, so they become even friendlier. So in a certain sense, my father-in-law, Rabbeinu Finkel, and several of the other Rabbanim in Eretz Yisrael and the Mir Yeshiva were like brothers. So when I was first married and I visited Eretz Yisrael with my wife, so my father-in-law gave us a list of all of his chaverim that we have to visit. So we spent more time with Rabbeinu Finkel than anybody else. Rabbeinu Finkel only had daughters, he had no sons. And Rav Nosson Tzvi was one of his sons-in-law. So in a certain sense, we always felt with each other as if we were cousins, because he was the son-in-law of Rabbeinu, and I was the son-in-law of Rav Aaron Yeshaya. He loved very much my son, Aaron Yeshaya, because he knew my father-in-law's name was Aaron Yeshaya. And he felt that my father-in-law was like a brother to his father-in-law. Rav Nosson Tzvi was a very warm, friendly person. He would always be encouraging all of the boys to learn and to succeed and to go into chinuch. he was success. He had many boys who learned in Hesped Yeshivas in Eretz Yisrael who would graduate. They learn a year or two there. They would decide to go move on to learn in the Mir Yeshiva in Yerushalayim. Quite a few of them would come back to America and go to university, go to college. He wasn't against it. They had their style at Eretz Yisrael. We have our style over here. He would always encourage them. He was successful where he was in his area, and the boys that come back to America should be successful here in their style. Gemara has a comment, Hillel Mechayev Aniyim, Rav Nosson ben Charsa Mechayev Ashirim, and so on. Hillel was very poor, and notwithstanding, he was Moisa Nefesh to learn Torah. He hardly made a parnasa, and he would give away half of his peanuts that he got. He gave away half of the money to pay the Shema HaPesach, to pay to enter the yeshiva. So if Hillel, who was so poor, was able to succeed to become the chief rabbi, the Gemara says, Kal v'chayma, we're not so poor. He's certainly mechayev us. We certainly have to work hard to learn. Nosson ben Charsa was extremely wealthy, and he was very busy taking care of all of his wealth and all of his investments and everything. Nonetheless, he became a great Tana. So the Gemara says, when you have one person who's in the same situation as you are, and he's able to succeed, so that's mechayev all of the other people who have who are in the same situation. They can also succeed. One of the boys tells over, Lavi Greenspan is a Muslim from my yeshiva who lost his sight in his early 20s. So he was once visiting Rav Nosson Tzvi Finkel, and they were arguing with each other, who's mechayev, whom more. Rav Nosson Tzvi had his Parkinson's, and his body would always shake, and he would strain himself to give shiurim every day. Give shiurim for the American students. Always give shiurim. He strained himself to come to America to raise money for the yeshiva. And Lavi Greenspan lost his eyesight, and he also strains. He's still alive. He's still alive. So each one was arguing with the other. Who is mechayev whom? Who is more Moisa Nefesh? We should learn from both of them. The one who's still alive and the one who just passed away. Mechayev all of us. In the summertime, I participate in the NCSY learning program in Eretz Yisrael. So every summer they like to take, whenever it's possible, they like to take the American students to visit Rav Nosson Tzvi. So he always tells them, I was brought up in Chicago. I went to a co-ed high school. He's mechayev everybody. I went to a co-ed high school. And I came to Eretz Yisrael, and he sat and he learned and became a big Talmid Chacham. Everyone can become a big Talmid Chacham. He's mechayev all of us. Just to conclude with a brief about Torah, in the beginning of Parshas Vayera, Rashi comments on the pasuk V'hu Yoshev Pesach HaOhel, that it's written Chasavav. So Rashi quotes the Medrash that Avraham Avinu wanted to stand up, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him no. Out of Kavod Ashchini, he wanted to stand up, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him no. Ato Simen Levanecha, that when there'll be a din Torah, the Dayanim should sit. So Avraham Avinu was a siman for the Dayanim. What do you mean a siman for the Dayanim? Where was the din Torah over here? No one was having a din Torah. What in the world does it have to do with the din Torah? So Rav Soloveitchik suggested once al derech hadrash, the Malachim who visited Avraham Avinu were on their way to go destroy Sodom V'Amorah. So one could argue the point and say, maybe the location was so miserable that it was impossible to be an Erlich person. Maybe living in that area of the world, in the Middle East, maybe it's impossible to be normal. Maybe you have to be wicked like the people in Sodom V'Amorah. So that's what the Chazal point out. No, Avraham Avinu lived right down the block, and he was a tzaddik. He was fine with Olam HaMakom and Olam HaVeiro. Totally not like the people from Sodom. So in a certain sense, just like the Gemara says, Hillel mechayev aniyin, Avlos Charsa mechayev ashirim. So in a certain sense, Avraham Avinu was mechayev Sodom V'Amorah. He lived under the exact same circumstances, right down the block, right down the road. Nonetheless, he was a tzaddik ben Olam HaMakom and Olam HaVeiro. So that's what the Chazal in the Medrash we're referring to. In a certain sense, Avraham Avinu was like a diet. He wasn't judging on Anshe Sodom, but he was mechayev Anshe Sodom. Mechayev in a sense, he was a tzaddik. He was able to succeed in Yerushalayim. So the Anshe Sodom deserved to be punished. They could have lived the same style of living that Avraham Avinu lived. We should all be healthy, and we should live to our Erichas Yomim. But Nosson Tzvi is mechayev all of us. We are very relaxed. Usually we take it easy. We shouldn't take it easy so much. We should do like he did, to work hard. He expanded the Mir Yeshiva much more than it was. When I visited Mir Yeshiva, I remember 45 years ago, it was a tiny little place, hardly anybody there. He expanded it thousands of Talmidim. We should all do the best we can to be Moisa Nefesh within reason, to be Marbitz Torah, to learn Torah to the best of our abilities.
The Shuz Rosh Yeshiva, I'd like to begin with underlining something that Rav Shechter mentioned. Coming into this building every day, teaching MTA, I try sometimes to inspire the Talmidim and tell them that we're learning in a building with a rich legacy. This past Sunday was the yahrzeit of Rav Shimon Shkop. And I tell them Rav Shimon Shkop taught in this building. There was only one building back then. He was a Rosh Yeshiva who taught in this building, and who knows if the classroom that we're sitting in, and the Zoichet being the classrooms here, who knows if the classroom we're sitting in is not the classroom in which Rav Shimon Shkop taught his shir. But the Rosh Yeshiva seemed to have been born Rosh Yeshiva. And of course they had kishronos which perhaps are beyond our capacity sometimes to perceive, and they certainly had a different set of kishronos than we have today. But as the Rav Shechter mentioned, Rav Nosson Tzvi Finkel was one of us. His parents were successful caterers in Chicago. He went to the Ida Crown Jewish Academy. He was a star basketball player on the basketball team. He was very tall. So, and he graduated, like us, he graduated from high school. And the high school was associated with Skokie Yeshiva at the time, but there was no separate high school in Chicago. He graduated from high school and he went to learn at Eretz Yisrael. The thing is that when he went to learn Eretz Yisrael, he went to learn and he remained there. But qualitatively, there's no difference between his background and our background. And as the Rav Shechter said, that is what is Mechayev of us, the fact that he was from the same background as us. And my personal recollections of Nosson Tzvi begin when I was in the Mir. I came in Elul and Sukkot Bein Hazmanim. He came over to me. I don't know why he came over to me. Maybe because I was one of the few Bachurim in the Mir who wore colored shirts. I came over and he came over and offered to learn with me during Bein Hazmanim. And every day I went to his house during that Bein Hazmanim and we learned together. And there are several things which struck me at the time, which continue to strike me today, and I'd like to focus on them for a few moments. First of all, the utter pashtus of the way he lived was very, very, very simple. And you could see when you entered the house there was no concern with anything else. There was nothing else had any value except for Torah and Avodas Hashem. But about his personality specifically, I'm sure people who have seen him recently also noticed this, but this is noticeable maybe 28 years ago, that he had the hadras panim which comes to a person who is involved to such an extent in Torah and Avodas Hashem. He exuded that hadras panim which comes to great masmidim, great talmidei chachamim. And not just that, but he was always had a smile. Everything was b'seir panim yafos. We see it in Pirkei Avos. It's Shammai who says having Merkavos going b'seir panim yafos, not Hillel, because that it's not considered not a lifnim yeshua sadin to be Merkavos b'seir panim yafos. It is the shura sadin. And Rav Nosson Tzvi always had a smile. He always had a calm and happy look on his face. I forget which one of the Bali Musar said that the face of a person is a Shus Rabin. And a person that's something which we should be able to learn to go about, not with panim zoafos, the way very often we go about, rather to take that message that a person who is a gadol is a person who also goes around the state of panim zoafos. The other message which I took from him, and which is something which perhaps we should consider, we know when a gadol passes away, when Rebbe passed away, so his talmidim, or not passed away, his talmidim took on each one the different traits which he had. So too when a gadol b'Torah passes away, we of course should think about the different traits which he had and see what we can accept upon ourselves to be mechazik ourselves in. There's it's interesting, like Yisod from Yosef Leib Bloch, that tells the Rosh Yeshiva. He says that explains the concept of Tokadei Dibur Kedibur Dami. It says, why is Tokadei Dibur Kedibur Dami? Because a person talks before they think. meaning we say the words that we say, and we only finish the thoughts upon which the words were based after we finish saying the words. He says that this is the reason why you have a second or split second, a second or two after you finish saying something to take it back, because your mind is still occupied on that. And he says that you'll see that if you make a statement that's all of a sudden somebody says something totally different to you, you'll feel that you're distracted, interrupted, even though you are not in the middle of your talking anymore, because the mind lags after the mouth. He said that that's why we have certain things where we say don't think people is not going to work. Why? Because they're very chomer things, like Kiddushin, or Rizar, other things where people are deliberate and they think what they're going to say before they say it. But there are very few things like that. So, this was an outstanding trait of Rav Nosson Tzvi, that he was, on the one hand, he was the one who pushed the yeshiva always to learn faster. So he had to learn an Omer a day. It's his Seder. Bachman, who went to his Kabura, learned very quickly. But when he spoke very calmly, deliberately, and thoughtfully. When I would ask him a question after he finished learning, I would ask him various different questions, sometimes perhaps pointed questions, and he would think before he spoke. Every word was shuffled, every word was carefully weighed before he expressed it. And this is a midah which I wish I had, and certainly something which many of us wish we had. I would save us a lot of trouble, but besides that, it's proper for a person who's aspiring to be Ben Torah, Rebbe Hashem, to make sure that what comes out of one's mouth is carefully thought about beforehand. So this is something which I think, a midah which we should consider all, at least for today, working on. This midah of being shokel, weighing what we say before we say it, and making sure that words we're going to say, you know, I believe it's the Grow says that you cannot be Messiah, how much schar there is for each word of Torah a person says. Each word is meaningful. It's not about Lashon Hara, Motzi Shemra, Chas v'Shalom, it's about even Tzichas Chulin Shel Tamid Chachamim Tzricha Talmud, because it's carefully stated, carefully thought about, and carefully deliberated beforehand. So it's result to take this midah a little bit, try and work on it, and thus keep that lesson which this God of the Torah taught us alive and be mischazik from it.